Now that we know how to make walls, doors, windows, and do some modifications or load some specific types into our drawings, we're going to take an architectural plan and put it into CAD. This will be the basis for the rest of the semester. So this file will keep going, and you'll just kind of do a save as depending on what week and then what homework needs to be uploaded. So I still have my file open, which I've been playing around and practicing in, and I'm just going to erase everything that's on here. But you could always do a different kind of save as, but remember to follow all our file naming kind of standard that we do so we know which assignment the file needs to be associated with. So a lot of times when you're working on a project, they could be an existing building. And if you're lucky, the building may actually have some floor plans or some existing drawings that you'll be able to use as an underlay. There are times, depending on if it's a commercial job and if it's pretty recent, maybe you'll get CAD files that you can insert and work from. But most of the time we still seem to see a scanned in kind of PDFs from an original printed out set. So I'm going to show you the most common process of having a file and then being able to use that file to kind of like draw off of it and then use it as your existing conditions. So if you do find an architectural set of drawings and it's printed, you can usually have local printing companies like scan it in at full scale, and then you can use that digital file and insert it into AutoCAD. And I would recommend that you tell the printer company to scan it in as a .png or a .tif, TIF or TIFF. That'll make sure that the file will not get distorted or give you any trouble later on. So here I am, I got a blank canvas, and I'm going to go up to the ribbon and click Insert and then Attach. And because I was playing around with this earlier, it went and opened up exactly where I have my file saved. But what you will do is need to browse to wherever the location is that you took down the course or downloaded the course file, which is week 3 floor plan underlay, and it's a .png. If you're having trouble seeing this file, maybe come down to all image files and you would have to tell it which one you're looking for. But honestly, all image files should be the default, and you should be able to see the .png if you're looking in your correct folder. So I can select the file and then say Open. The next dialog box we see is similar to a lot of different forms of attaching. So we can attach images, we can attach other drawings into here, AutoCAD drawings. And there are some bringing in schedules from Excel, but they can get kind of tricky. So I would recommend, looking at that, as you start working with the program to see what workflow you might want to ever do. We don't tend to use any of the inserting those kind of files into AutoCAD. It just gets tough to work around. Here it's giving you a really simple preview. It's actually a lot better quality than it's showing here. The path type basically is how AutoCAD can find the image whenever it needs to open the particular file that you're working on. Everything has a path. That means AutoCAD's not bringing in the actual image, it's kind of just linking it, and it needs to know where it lives and retain that path in order to always be able to open it. Relative path is the best way to save paths. Full path, it can lose its link if you do any switching of files. Insertion point, I'm going to unclick. I want it to be at the 0, origin. That means it'll pop down here. I tend to like that. And then specify on screen is how we get this to be scaled properly. So there's 2 methods, and I will demonstrate both and tell you the reasons why we use one versus the other. The file we are currently using this week 3 floor plan underlay was printed out at 1/4 inch scale. And since I know that, then I can kind of unclick specify on screen, and I can do a unit of 48. And 48 is the unit scale of a 1/4 inch drawing. Now, if it didn't have a scale, like you just got a random PDF and you're not quite sure what scale it was printed out, we will do another process, and I'll show you that as well. So doing 48 will work for the scale, and then I'm going to click OK. Now it put the lower left-hand corner at origin, and if I zoom out, the PDF now is loaded here. And images take a bit of processing, and AutoCAD doesn't love images, so if I click pan, it kind of shows, but sometimes it'll like disappear on me. Don't be too worried about that. It's just kind of AutoCAD being laggy. It looks like it's a crappy print, but if I zoom in, it actually gets clearer and clearer, so I don't have to worry too much about that right there. So this one, if I were to go to home and then click distance, it should have come in at the correct, so see how it blanked out, but it's still there. It should come out, so if I click here and then click here, it's giving me a readout of 5 foot, and that's just because I had to eyeball it. So I know that this properly scaled at the 48 scale factor in order to know which scale the drawing should be brought into so that it's a 1-to-1, you know, real size. Now let's say that I didn't know the scale of this drawing. Maybe it was just a PDF or something that was given to me. It didn't have a label, like honestly, this doesn't have a label, but you're just taking my word for it. It's 48 inches, but this just came from somebody. I mean, maybe a homeowner just happened to have a print and they hand it off to you. So there is a way to kind of at least get you enough that you could draw your AutoCAD kind of underlay, you know, print it out and then go to the site and then do some key measurements to see if you're correct. So I would never, even getting a nice scaled in drawing like this, I would still go to the job site and go to someone's house and verify a bunch of these dimensions anyway. I wouldn't take it as gospel no matter what program. Even if it was a CAD file, you still want to go and make sure that your measurements are accurate. So I'm going to go back to insert, and you don't have to do this process. You can just kind of look at it and maybe take notes about how to make a drawing to be scaled if you don't know what scale. So I'm going to go back to insert and attach. I'm going to select the same drawing, and now let's pretend I don't know its scale. So it got scaled in at 1-to-1, which means if it was printed at an 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, that's what it would show up as if I don't change this scale. It's just the piece of paper being logged in or inserted into AutoCAD. So I don't want it to overlay on top of what I already have here, so I'm just going to say I want the insertion point to be specified on the screen, and you'll see the difference there. So I go OK. It's now asking me, and you can see that little piece of paper, and if you look down in the command line, it's basically asking me where to put it. So I'm just going to pop it in anywhere, and if we zoom way in, it's the same drawing, but it's not scaled anymore. It's just a little piece of paper, and you can kind of see its scale anyway, so it's correct. Now, luckily, there are dimension strings on this drawing here. It gets kind of difficult to scale a drawing if there's no dimensions on it. If you found yourself with one of those types of drawings, we make some assumptions just to get us somewhere. So if I was looking at a house plan, I would probably go to the kitchen and decide that that's probably a 2-foot countertop. So there's certain things that we can take as like oh, it's probably this scale. In commercial buildings, most doors for modern buildings, like let's say 1970s and up, their doorways will be 6 foot wide, so that is our reference point. And what that does is gets you close enough to start having your underlays drawn in the CAD, but then you go to the job site and you're going to go and verify them anyway. But here we have our dimensions. And remember how I was looking at this 5-foot dimension? That's what I'm going to use in order to scale this. And I'm going to draw a series of lines that help me have guides, basically. So I'm going to go up to home, and then I'm going to get out of the white line weight because I need to see it. So hopefully like a red's going to show up. And I'm going to click L for line and then enter. And I'm just going to eyeball where this wall is. And I'm just going to draw it kind of long. I want to be able to see it, and sometimes if it's overlays, it's kind of tough. Then I'm going to draw another line. And I'm going to use something that's called, it notices where other snaps are. So right now I can use this kind of, I don't know the official term of it, to be honest, but it'll track the snap. So I can bring my cursor over to the endpoint and the line next to it, and then kind of bring it back a little bit. And it takes some practice. You see how there's this dashed line above the line that I've drawn? Now it's going to line up those two endpoints, and that's pretty useful. You want to be able to have some reference points. So I want to make sure that those lines were the same. Now the next piece I have to do, I need to offset this first line 5 feet over, because what I'm going to try to do is scale this unknown dimension to be an actual size of the 5 feet. So I need to now offset this, which would be our origin point. So I'll go offset 5 feet, and then click it, and then click to the side that I want it to be on. So now from here to here is the actual 5 feet. So I'm going to now click Scale, and it's SC, enter. And it's first asking me, okay, what object is what we want to scale? So I'm going to pick box the plan. Then I'm going to hit enter on my right click on the mouse. Now it's saying specify base point. So the base point is like the origin, and that's what I'm going to click here. Now the next thing it wants to do is specify scale factor. Now you could, move this around, and if you knew if it was quarter inch scale, you could type in 48 at this point, and you'll hop to it. But we're pretending we don't know the scale. So what we want to do is reference. So we want to use these lines that we've created. So I'm going to type in R and then enter, and it asks me again, what's the reference length? And we go back to our base point. I go to what it currently is, which is the 5 foot kind of just graphic, and I select that. And then I'm going to zoom out a little bit, so I'm using my mouse just so I can reposition, and I'm going to then select the 5 foot point. And if I zoom out, it now scaled this drawing properly. And if I would just eyeball distance, and just for real quick, yep, we're pretty close. I mean, you're never going to be able to eyeball something as accurate as AutoCAD can draw, but we will take this as being a pretty good scale. So what you're doing is just kind of creating what graphically that 5 foot looks like. Then you're offsetting the actual 5 feet. You scale, but you have to make sure you're first referencing the graphic and then showing it where it needs to go to make it full scale. And like any object, you can select and move this drawing around, but I would leave it to wherever you want to start drawing it. And I'm going to delete it because I have the original here. So that is bringing in some PDFs. Well, it's a PNG. Basically, it's an underlay kind of plan. And there's 2 methods that should get you out of almost any sort of condition of a drawing that you'll get as an existing condition.